are carefully following the path of Hurricane Epstein right now. It is a Category 5. It's expected to make landfall sometime very soon. We are now one step closer to answering the question, what did the president know and how old were these women when he knew it? Yesterday, both the House and Senate voted to release the long-withheld files related to a man who considered himself to be Trump's closest friend for more than a decade, the late sex criminal Jeffrey Epstein. Even if Trump keeps his promise and signs the bill, we don't know whether the Department of Justice will actually release all the files or if they'll be tied up in investigations, specifically investigations Trump orders to keep them tied up in investigations. And that is where things will get interesting. Will we have the original documents, or is Trump going to pull a Taylor Swift and give us the Epstein files, Donnie's version of the document? We might not ever know. Trump claims this whole thing is a Democrat hoax, and the reason he refused to sign an executive order to release the files months ago is because it's a waste of time.
Joining me now is political advisor and commentator CJ Pearson. CJ, we'll start with the Epstein files and with President Donald Trump giving an ABC reporter an absolute dressing down. This is Mary Bruce. And his issue here seems to be that they're all suddenly obsessed with Epstein and not what asking the president thinks are the pertinent questions.
You could even ask that same exact question nicely. You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. They're going to psych it. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter. As far as the Epstein files is, I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. But I guess I turned out to be right. But you know who does have? Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, who ran Harvard, was with him every single night, every single weekend. They lived together. They went to his island many times. I never did. Andrew Weissman, I hear. All these guys were friends of his. You don't even talk about those people. You just keep going on the Epstein files. And what the Epstein is a Democrat hoax to try and get me not to be able to talk about the $21 trillion that I talked about today. It's a hoax. Now, I just got a little report, and I put it in my pocket, of all the money that he's given to Democrats.
CJ, it's not a hoax, but perhaps trying to tie Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein is a hoax, a Democrat hoax, but the Epstein files are very much real.
Yeah, they definitely are. But, what we're looking at here and what I'm seeing is that there are no victims of Jeffrey Epstein who've come out and accused President Trump of any wrongdoing. And I think if that's going to be indicative of anything, I think that is actually the most interesting thing about all of this. The Democrats didn't care about these Epstein files until they could weaponize it against the president. They never called on President Biden to release these files, never called on any Democrats to release these files. But now all of a sudden, when they believe it's some type of political football, which I believe is completely dehumanizing to the actual victims of Jeffrey Epstein's, terrible, vile actions, now they feel as if it's something that they should all of a sudden be so passionate about. Here's the deal. I think victims of sexual abuse, especially children, deserve justice. Doesn't matter if they are Republican, Democrat, or what administration it may be. But to accuse this of being some type of President Trump problem is divorced from reality.
Well, Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump named some names there, and Jeffrey Epstein's links to Democrats are well established. He was a committed Democrat, a prolific Democrat donor. Let's hear from James Comer here, who spoke about Jeffrey Epstein's links with Democrat politicians, including Hakeem Jeffries, who was soliciting money from Epstein as late as 2013.
Colleagues' coordination with Epstein. Another email shows Democrat fundraisers invited Epstein to an event or to meet privately with Hakeem Jeffries as part of their 2013 effort to win a majority. So Hakeem Jeffries' campaign solicited money from Jeffrey Epstein. That's what we found in the last document batch. The files underscore why former President Trump must appear for his deposition. We've subpoenaed him. To date, the Democrats have done nothing to help us secure his appearance. I support full transparency. The Oversight Committee will continue to work to get the truth to the American people and to get justice for the victims. That's our goal of this investigation.
CJ, Democrats were even working with Epstein in 2019 during a congressional hearing. One of them was exchanging text messages with Epstein to try to get Donald Trump. These links are many, and yet again, the media seems largely uninterested in investigating them.
Largely uninterested because they see that there aren't any ties to actual Republicans in many of these files that have been uncovered. But yet, as these files continue to be released, we see more and more, ties between them and the Democrats, whether it's, Larry Summers, the former president of Harvard University, who served in many Democratic administrations, and also, too, the congresswoman that you mentioned, who was actually texting to Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing. And so, for all these people that, love to talk about so-called Russian collusion, let's talk about pedophile collusion, because that's exactly what they were engaging in when they were working hand in hand with Jeffrey Epstein to undermine President Trump. If you read the emails that have been released, it's quite clear that Jeffrey Epstein was not a fan of the president. And as President Trump has made clear, he was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein. And so I think that the transparency that they're calling for, I hope that it doesn't know any political, qualifications, because it seems as if there's a lot more discussion matter, subject matter here to be had on the Democrat side than on the Republican side here.
CJ, you are right about the animosity between Epstein and Trump. Epstein certainly hated Donald Trump. That much is clear. And I don't think it was just because Epstein was a Democrat and a Democrat donor. Donald Trump banned him from Mar-a-Lago before he was even facing any charges. And Michael Wolff revealed that Epstein suspected Donald Trump was behind him being reported to authorities. And that, of course, began his legal troubles. And if you read those emails, it is very clear that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump and wanted to see him fail.
Yeah, it's incredibly clear now that we've seen all of this. And so I think at the end of the day, President Trump has called for accountability in every which way for this issue. Republicans have joined him in doing so. There is no room, for any of this in our country. And I think that even with Jeffrey Epstein's, passing, the victims of his terrible, heinous crimes deserve justice. And President Trump has joined folks in calling for that. He's directed the DOJ to investigate his links to many prominent people in our country who for a long time probably felt as if they would escape accountability because of their name, because of their wealth, because of their prominence. He says that there is no, again, excuse for that sort of thing in this country. And God bless him for it. He should continue to fight for that. And he has shown a willingness and a resolve to continue to do so.